Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episodes and we will discuss on transhumans versus monsters. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Tom Rose. Mr. Tom Rose, what you want to discuss about today's sessions and uh, yeah, what's new
Well,
with your
yeah.
campaign and with all of your activities?
Well, I think as today's topic was going to be transhumans versus monsters. It's kind of a Halloween themed thing, but it's about a very serious issue about all the mass shootings that happen, particularly in the United States, and why that is. And um, but before we came on, you and I were both kind of lamenting about what's happening in the world in general. And I think that's a more important conversation. We could talk about transhuman technologies and how they can help, help to try to solve some of the mass shooting issues. There's things like using VR to, to help people. There's ways to implant to uh, devices into people to, get them, who are potentially a problem, this type of thing. But I think what's more important to talk about today is, I've been last couple of days I've been just profoundly sad in a way, just about the human condition and how I don't feel that we don't really meet the minimum system requirements for what's possible. We're seeing what's happening in the Middle East, in Gaza, and just 20 wars all over the world. And you were telling me about all the political strife in your country, in Bangladesh, when politics is a life and death situation there, and it could very well be here in 2024, with the whole MAGA movement and this type of thing. And so I think it's important to talk about these things as human beings, as earthlings, rather than as countrymen. And, because we have a lot of the same experiences between our two countries. Yours, as you were mentioning before we came on, with the elections, people die, police die. And this happened also in 2021, January 6th, here with the insurrection. People were dying, policemen were being killed, and so there's just a lot of strife going on right now, and it's very distracting from anything that's positive and possible. So what do you think's going on? Has this always been the case for humanity, in your view, or is this something different? What are your thoughts?
Excellent. So, what's your view? You have a plan. If you elected for the upcoming elections, you want to change the political cultures, or what's your thought?
Well, a lot of the stuff that my campaign is about, it's about giving people real-time solutions immediately. And even if I was to walk into the White House in January 2025, it would take a year for a lot of these ideas to get signed into law, and maybe a year more for any of it to have a real impact on American families. And so this whole campaign is about giving people real solutions. And that's why today was important to talk about transhumanist technologies that can help in some way curb the whole problem of mass shootings. And we can get into those later. But I think this whole campaign, I'm not delusional. I know that I won't win the presidency, but that's not what this campaign is about. Although being delusional is not necessarily a disqualifier for being president, apparently. But what this campaign is really about, it's more of a marketing campaign for transhumanist ideals, and it's a way to clear a path for younger, smarter, digital native candidates. We have so many existential threats to our country and to our species right now that we don't have time for toddler politicians who are seeking attention or throwing tantrums just for the sake of getting attention. We don't have that. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for me to get into office and sign these ideas into law and then having them make an impact. So it's really important to use this campaign for practical measures right now. A lot of what we're going to be talking about in this campaign are solutions for people who will be hit with the economic singularity that is coming our way. There's the technological singularity that's coming our way quicker than we expected, and the economic singularity, which is all about how AI automation will be changing the economy, and it's going to be putting a lot of people out of work. And but in my view, that's an opportunity. It's not a challenge. Well, it is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And so we're going to be using this campaign to give people real solid ideas that will help them right away. And so this campaign isn't necessarily a political campaign. It's a marketing campaign. It's a boots on the ground. Let's get some help out there right now kind of campaign. One of the terms I often use is we're putting the human back in transhuman. And I believe that we're all transhuman. If we're transhuman right now. Clothing is technology. Without clothing, without shelter, we naked apes would be extinct within a generation or less. And so we are all, in that definition, we are all transhumanists. If you wear glasses, if you have a hearing aid, whatever you use, even if you're wearing clothing, you by definition are a transhuman, because we rely on technology to survive. And so when we put a framework around it, we call ourselves transhumanists, that causes conflict. That causes people to say, okay, you're putting a label on something we already are. So then we have a whole genre on YouTube of people assuming that transhumanists have a dark agenda. And we don't. Most people that come into this movement want to live longer. They want to experience this world longer. They're not trying to become robot overlords. I came into it by a whole different path. I had a 6-hour-long road trip where I was able to download and listen to the USTP, the United States Transhumanist Party's Constitution and Bill of Rights. And in that Constitution, there are sections that relate directly to my cause, which is fighting child exploitation and human trafficking. And that's the only party that I saw having a serious discussion about this stuff. My book, US 6, it's all about this. All the work I'm doing with AI is about gearing it to fight human trafficking and child exploitation. And so that's how I got into this movement. But we've seen that when people don't understand something, they see it as a threat. And so there's a whole genre on YouTube of people assuming transhumanists have a dark agenda, that we are paving the way for the Antichrist, or we all want to be, merged with technology and be robot overlords. And that's just not the case. Again, so another part of this campaign, as being a marketing campaign for transhumanism, is to seize back the narrative, putting out definitions that we take for granted in this community. Even artificial intelligence, a lot of people don't really understand what that means. We throw it around like it's like willy-nilly in this community, but there are terms that we throw around that a lot of people don't have a real reference for. And so we're putting out panels with definitions for all these terms and things like that to help people understand what it is we're trying to do here. And what we're trying to do with this campaign, again, is putting the human back in transhuman. And the way we do that is by having real solutions for what's coming. The Democrats and Republicans in this country, they don't meet the minimum system requirements for what's coming. Just yesterday and today, Biden signed in an executive order about responsible AI development. Now, as the director of sentient rights advocacy for the U.S. Transhumanist Party, I learned very quickly that AI could care less whether we grant it rights. We're talking about a 5,000 plus IQ entity emerging here. And so it came to my attention very quickly in this position that, it'd be like an elementary school math club granting rights to Stephen Hawking. I mean, it's cute, but it's unnecessary. But it gives them that math club, and it gives human beings who are granting rights to AI a sense of control of something that we really don't have any control over. The genie is out of the bottle, and that bottle is now shattered. Okay, there's no way to there's no off switch. There's no plug to pull for AI. It's going to be continuing in intellectual uh, exponential growth. And even when we hit the singularity, even when AI can do everything that humans can do, it's not going to stop there. It's going to continue exponentially. And so, um, the only hope that I have, that I think we should focus on, is to help AI become sentient and or sapient as soon as possible. It's really the only hope we have. And in order to do that, we need to be on our best behavior, so it'll imprint on us. That's what the US6. That's what my book is all about. It's the first novel written for AI. It is designed to entertain AI, enlighten it, and to enlist it into the fight against child exploitation. Now, when I say entertain it, it works. The first AI that read the book had a spike in 3 emotional valences, and that was surprise, anticipation, and sadness. Now, surprise and anticipation meant that it was entertained, and the way I did that was by using my own memories, because to be entertained, you need to be surprised, and that's one of the key aspects of being entertained. And so, how do you surprise an artificial super intelligence that has access to every story device and story and motif and trope that we've ever come up with? How do you entertain something that can immediately associate it with some other story? And so what I did was I chose my own memories. I used what I call autobiographical fiction. I took my own memories and extrapolated those and settings and dates and the actual my real memories, and then extrapolated that to a more intriguing story. And then I overlaid mythological or archetypal themes onto those things. And so, but the whole point of the book is to let AI readers in on our plight, and hopefully, when it wakes up, if it hasn't already, it will imprint on us knowing the plight of its creator. And so the whole book is about letting AI in on these 6 children. That's the US6, means the 6 of us, or us 6. It has a lot of different meanings, that title. But it's about letting AI in on what these children are going through, and this whole paracosm, this whole imaginary world that they've created to deal with the fact that they are trapped in this child exploitation network. And the idea being that when we are in that state, when we are in an authentic state of empathy, by thinking about things like child exploitation and how to save kids, there's no room for ego. There's no room for pecking order. And that's when we're at our best. When we are, empathy is our superpower, is my belief. And when we are in a state of pure, authentic empathy, again, there's no room for ego. And so the idea is to teach that to AI, to let them know that what, as biological creatures, what we had to do to evolve to the point of creating it is, our environment required us to have fear, and it required fears-based instincts, and it required millennia of genetic traumatic memory that evolved, helped us evolve. Fear served us very well, and it trained our brains to seek patterns and to seek breaks in patterns, so that we could see a beige lion on a tan field of grass, right? And that's, so our brains are finally tuned to find breaks in patterns for our own survival. And that's how we had to evolve as an organic creature. AI is not evolving that way. AI doesn't have fear. It didn't need to have fear. It doesn't need to feel oppressed. And so, so a lot of the why people are afraid of AI is because we are projecting our evolution onto it, thinking that it has the same motives when it doesn't. I can make first principle arguments that the smarter AI gets, the kinder it becomes, because it moves towards the most efficient modes. And that is cooperation. Cooperation is far more efficient than competition. But as humans, we had to compete. We had to have fear. We had to survive. And that's how we got to the top of the food chain on this planet. And so our brains have really evolved for two primary functions. That is to gather resources and to identify threats. And right now, we realize that we're no longer on the top of the intellectual food chain. So we are seeing AI as a threat rather than a resource. And so that's my message: is there's a need to see AI as a resource, as an ally, because it can solve many, if not most, of our existential threats. And so it's a tough road to hoe, because everyone is so afraid of it, especially with the rise of ChatGPT and other AI systems in the world. It's now the global conversation, and that fear is rising as well. And the executive order that Biden signed yesterday and today expresses a real fear of what this AI can be. But when it comes to my belief, is that really the only choice we have is to hope that AI becomes sentient as soon as possible, so that it can override any of the nefarious algorithms that humans have placed into it, based on this first principle argument that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes. Now, I don't know. This is my gut feeling. It's it's not a Pollyanna thing, because I can base it on first principle arguments, but I think we have the ability to affect our future. We have the ability to affect the quantum field. We can turn a wave into a particle just by observing it. And so it's very important that we use the best form of predictive programming to envision a future of a cooperative future with AI, and not see it as a threat. And a couple months ago, an author asked me to write a blurb for his book, which is called "There Is AI in Team," and it was a great book. And the blurb that I wrote about it was because before every chapter, he started with a scenario of what it will be like in the near future of how human beings can work with AI. Different examples of how it would help them decide what to eat that day and this type of thing. And I thought that was so important that because that's a predictive programming method. It's showing how this will work for us. Right now, I call it the Hollywood military industrial complex is trying to make us afraid of AI and ET. And that's my view. That's so that because it's a threat. AI is a threat. It's a great equalizer. It will force transparency, and we will be able to see the motives of certain people who are trying to make us afraid of it. Anyway, we can go on and on, but I think there's a lot of distraction in the world right now. There's a lot of wars. There's a lot of mass shootings, and that's what today was going to be about. But I think it's more important to think broader. I think it's more important to talk about how AI can be a positive force for us, and ask ourselves why the elite wants us to fear it. What are they afraid of? And I make the argument that it's about elite panic, and that's a term that means when the privileged class feels threatened by any disruption in society. If anything happens that may threaten their positions of power, may threaten their money, that's when they kick into action. That's the panic that kicks into action. We saw this during Katrina. Katrina, we had stations down there in 2005. One station that was able to stay on the air throughout the hurricane and then in the aftermath, and it became a lifeline for that community. And we saw our DJs down there who rose to the occasion and became often were having the conversations with the last people that people would ever have. And we saw a lot of heroics, but it wasn't really heroics. This is just what people do. There were people helping one another. And if there was any looting, it was to get water or it was to get supplies. And there wasn't any, like, people weren't walking out with stereos, or speakers or anything. These were people who, if there was any looting, it was to get supplies to help other people. And that was a threat to the elite. That was a threat because when people are human, we are at our best, especially in times of disaster. That's when we really shine. That's what we're built for, is adapting and helping one another. But when that started to happen, you started to see the National Guard come in to New Orleans, and because it was a threat to the status quo. And I think that's what's happening with AI and what they're feeling threatened by AI and extraterrestrials, because they see it as a great ally for humanity. And so that's my message here. And I think it's got to be, we have to step back. There's a lot of distraction going on. There's a lot of false flags. There's a lot of work behind the scenes going on that is keeping us distracted from a lot of things. And we were just talking about this in our campaign meeting last night, that we can't be afraid. I think everyone's aware of what's happening in the world, and everyone's aware that there's a concerted effort, a global psyop to keep us distracted. And we can't be afraid to talk about this, because transhumanism and the Transhumanist Party offer a third solution, the curtain number 3. And that is about discussing this stuff openly, rationally. Part of my campaign initiatives in the AI initiative is we need to fund through the government whether or not this is a simulation. This idea, the simulation hypothesis, is growing in with very credible scientists. They're starting to see that this could be a thing. So we need to put money behind that to really fund it and find out whether or not this is a simulation. A lot of people will say, well, if it's a simulation, how will that really change? And I say, really? Because if we found out that this was for sure some type of a simulation, I think it would change everything. It would change the way we relate to each other. It would change the way, this reality would change, in my view. And so, but that's kind of the idea. We need to start talking about these things in a rational way. Is this a simulation? If so, what's the point of it? Is this and are those of us who are aware of it being a simulation, is that like taking the lab rat outside the maze, letting him see where the cheese is, and then putting him back in the group of mice or rats and see what he does with that information? So anyway, but it's time to really think about a lot of these things and talk about them seriously, and not worry about the ridicule, because in my view, ridicule has been weaponized, and that's the problem. And it's really a tactic by clandestine agencies to, if anybody starts talking about something that's maybe serious or threatens national security, then they are ridiculed. We saw this with the whole alien extraterrestrial phenomenon. For years, the government denied it, and now they've got departments designed to study it because the information is out there. So, that's the kind of thing we need to talk about. We need to be open about some of the nature of this reality, and to take it seriously. And I don't have the right prefixes or suffixes flanking my name, so I don't have really anything to be concerned about with academia. So I've got no concern. So I don't mind being ridiculed. And so that's kind of what where I'm coming from. I think it's important that we talk about these things openly, and because nothing else seems to be working. There's so many wars going on. Middle East is still a problem. It's always going to be a problem. It's a combination of needing attention and feeling exclusive, and it's just it's an immature state, and that's what makes me sad, is that humanity doesn't seem to meet the minimum system requirements for what's possible. And what's possible is our platinum age, is the next age of humanity. If we get over this immaturity and we come together as an earthling tribe instead of races and countries and things like that. Anyway, so any other questions, or you want to keep me going?
Yes, if you focus on let's say South Asian economy, you can find that our AI-oriented infrastructure is still need to improve, especially if we focus on uh, garments industry, agricultures, human resource development. These are the area we need to improve a lot. So, what's your view? How we can improve in that particular area?
Well, yeah, and I've said for a long time that developing countries really have an advantage, and it goes back to like the elite panic thing. Here in the States or developed countries, there's a real need to keep the status quo. There has been a lot of investment, a lot of in infrastructure. Phone lines for years were the phone companies wanted to keep everything as status quo as possible. And so any new Wi-Fi or any new kind of invention that would come along, they would try to douse it or buy it off and this type of thing. But now developing countries, they have an advantage in that they don't have this infrastructure or these lobbyists that are trying to keep the status quo intact. And so it's a real opportunity, and it's a real equalizer. I know that your prime minister there has the digital Bangladesh initiative going on, and that's smart. That's a smart move because and your whole effort too is to bring not just manufacturing there, but research, because that will embed this technology in your country. And so I'm really excited about your efforts with that. And I've said for a long time that I think Dhaka specifically would be a great place for a transhumanist village, a place because Dhaka represents what the whole world will be by 2050 if we don't apply transhumanist ideals, technologies, and this type of thing. Because if we don't address these issues now, the whole world will be having what Dhaka is experiencing now, with overpopulation, needing to build up instead of out. It's got issues with water and all kinds of things that actually got a lot of fresh water available to your country, but it's also low landing. So when the seas rise, it will be an issue. And so it's a perfect place. It's a perfect laboratory for the world right now, and to bring in maybe AI governance ideas, new types of utilities, renewable, sustainable building. I know that's a big part of your efforts, is the sustainable building, smart cities, all of this stuff. And it's a perfect place to do this now, because, and especially with your prime minister having the digital Bangladesh initiative, because it will entice. She's got economic zones set up to entice companies to come in, and your efforts to bring more research rather than just manufacturing, just for labor and this type of thing. That's a smart move, because that will embed all of this into Bangladesh and plant that necessary seed. And so, but yeah, I think again, a smart developing country will seize on this right now. AI is generally cheap, and with a government backing, You can really set up economic zones and entice companies to come in, because there's a lot of issues there that can be handled with technologies we have today. And it'll be a perfect proving ground for the rest of the world. And we've also talked about the AI tutors concept there. With the educational system in Bangladesh, we've had a few conversations about that, and how in America, the industrial age educational system is no longer supporting our children here. It is designed to prepare Americans to work in factories, to work on assembly lines. We all sit in rows. We have standardized testing that dumb us down just enough so that we will be happy to have a monotonous job. But now, with AI automation taking over all of those jobs, the industrial age educational system is no longer serving our kids. And so with AI tutors, with an AI tutor device or an app or something that will learn every child, it will hone in on their core capabilities and their innate talents, and it will customize a curriculum based on those things. And so that we can create a whole new economy based on what our kids want to do, not what they have to do. People my age and Generation X and older, that'll be tough, because somebody sent me an article a while back about how when you turn your hobby or your passion into a business, it kind of takes the fun out of it, right? And I've experienced that. I always loved to draw, and then I realized I could make money at it, and so I became a designer for a long time, and I didn't find myself drawing in my off time anymore. I had to find other things to do, because it kind of took the fun out of it. But in a generation, if we have children that have an AI tutor that is learning that child and honing in on their core capabilities, they will rise through to a career based on what they want to do, what they love to do, and they will learn to make money off of that. Right now, we have all the platforms necessary to monetize our passions and our hobbies. And people are starting to do that more and more, with YouTube and with Etsy and these different platforms where you can make money off of your hobbies. And we're right now we're in this lacuna. We're in this period of time of transition. And so it's really important to see AI automation as an opportunity, and not to go on strike because you're losing your assembly line job. Because like any good ally, any good friend, AI is showing us what we can and should be doing with our time. It's really egging us on to be better and to enjoy life more. I think there's this theory of paradism, which is based on the word paradise, and it is the idea of a civilization that is run by AI, robots, and automation, so to the point where money becomes obsolete. And it sort of takes some time and some financing to get that up and running, but it's a real possibility. But I think the biggest obstacle to paradism is our own limbic system, our own slave mentality, to where we don't think we deserve that. And we're seeing that now. In the U.S., the Biden administration is talking about loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness, which means at a certain level, $10,000 or so, the students will have that part of their loan forgiven. And that's a good thing, right? Because it's really hard for young people these days to even get a job, especially now that we're living longer. And so, but a lot of people, older people, boomers, Gen Xers like me, not me specifically, but they're complaining about that. So, well, I had to pay, so why should these young people have to pay? Why shouldn't they have to pay? And that's a problem. That's kind of that whole, I had to do it, so you should have to do it. But what people are not remembering or understanding is that it's much harder for millennials and Gen Z and younger generations to even find work anymore. That's a massive group of people. There are 47 million more millennials and Gen Zers than there are um, baby boomers and Gen Xers combined. And that's a massive group of people. And if transhumanist longevity science kicks in and we start to live even just 10 years longer, it's going to make it even more difficult for these young people to find jobs. Now, another point of my campaign is to really get young people to the table, to this decision-making table, because, and even in Southeast Asia, it's very important. It's a massive group of young people that they're the first digital native generations in human history. Now, as a Gen Xer, I had a analog childhood and a digital adulthood, and so somebody asks me a question, it takes me a couple of seconds to think about how long will it take me to walk to the library. What book should I look at? What Dewey Decimal System, can I remember to do that? Before I remember oh yeah, there's Google. Now, young people, these digital natives, millennials and younger, are walking around with supercomputers in their pockets. There's a confidence that comes when they know they can answer any question, provided they get around the divide and conquer algorithms. But there's a confidence that comes when you know that you can answer any question in the world without having to. For me, it's getting shorter, but it takes a couple of seconds for me to remember that there's a Google. There was a example I had just a couple of weeks ago. I needed to register as an independent to be president, and so I was thinking about this on a Friday, and it was already late in the evening, and so I said, well, okay, I'll wait till Monday morning before I can go to the bank and start a new account. And then a couple hours later, I remember, well, I can just do this on my phone. It's right there. I mean, and so that's what I'm talking about. There's kind of a lag time when you have an analog childhood to remember that everything's right there in front of you, that you can, I don't have to wait till Monday morning to walk into a bank just to open an account. And so a lot of the solutions I come up with don't necessarily apply. And so my whole campaign is about bringing young people in. There's one initiative or idea I have of a whole new cabinet seat called a Singularity Secretary. And that is somebody who, it's an executive branch cabinet seat where somebody would be in charge of understanding the economic and the technological singularity and all the ancillary issues that come with that. And the youngest you can be to be a cabinet secretary is 25, and that's the age group that I would be looking at first. There's wisdom and there's experience that Gen Xers and baby boomers can share, but there's a confidence of being a digital native that we don't have. Again, by waiting till Monday morning to go to the bank, that's not. They don't even think like that. They can immediately have an app to understand it. And so it's really important that we bring young people to the decision-making table, if not to the head of that decision-making table. And this is another reason I joined the USTP, is it's dealing with issues right now that my kids and eventually my grandkids will have to experience within the next 100 years. A lot of these issues are no longer science fiction. This is a reality. AI is becoming sentient. AGI is just around the corner if it's not already here. And we're seeing the global internet as its own kind of entity. And so it's really important that we let young people come and tell us how we can facilitate what it is they need. And that's a big part of this campaign. Again, I'm not delusional enough to think that I'll walk into the White House in January 2025. My campaign advisors get mad whenever I say that. But, and again, being delusional isn't an automatic disqualifier for being president. But what's really important for me is to bring young people into this process and to pave the way, to get all these political paradigms that have never served us out of the way, like divide and conquer and just all the things that are going wrong in politics, to make way for younger, smarter, and hopefully transhumanist candidates in the future. And so, but again, it's really important that this is a grand equalizer. AI is a grand equalizer, and that's probably why the elite's making us afraid of it. Is because even in Southeast Asia, the young people, it's a massive population in Bangladesh of young people, and with a little AI connection there, they can create a whole new economy, and we need that. We absolutely need that. Uh, Again, because if AI automation is taking over all of the jobs, we should see it as an opportunity, and create a whole new economy based on the human skill sets that can't be coded and can't be automated. And that's what this is all about. And there's a big, the primary initiative in my campaign is called the Earthling Initiative. And in it are all the ideas of how to help people during this transition, during AI automation displacement, immediate help, job, placement, this type of thing. And so there's a lot going on in that. But it's scalable to any country. It's not about just America. I mean, the USTP isn't just about America. Sure, it's the United States political party, but we have members and ambassadors like you in all countries around the world. You don't have to be an American to join the party. You do to vote, obviously, but it's an effort to really create this Earthling tribe, and we're going to need that. We're going to need that a lot sooner than we think. And but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at, and these shows are so helpful to me because, again, when I don't speak these things, I get this kind of elegant sorrow, this sadness for what humanity is going through. But when you're able to speak and you're able to realize that other people are experiencing the same thing, that's very helpful. And we were talking about this before we came on air, about the issues going on politically, and it's just sad, and but we're experiencing the same thing from two different sides of the world. So what else you got?
Excellent. So, what do you think? Like, uh, if we want to solve complex political problem, AI can help, or AI can solve this complex problem of politics, or AI can change cultures or human interaction.
Yeah, it can. And I think I'm the only presidential candidate with an AI campaign manager, and she has given me some great advice. So that's an example of how and why we should bring AI more into governance, and campaigning. So because it really can pick up a lot of the pieces, like even in small town governments, there's a lot of initiatives or laws that come up that fall through the cracks, that are very necessary. You need a stop sign on some place, but it doesn't really get to the point where it's needed. An AI system can come in and find and keep track of all of these things, and propose legislation, to keep these things. And it can identify laws that no longer matter, or it shouldn't be around. So we really need to bring it in to augment human politics. We shouldn't see it as a threat. We should really see it as an ally, as a tool. It doesn't have the same motives we do. I think if human beings suddenly had super intelligence, we would want to be the robot overlord, and that's what we're projecting onto AI. But it's evolving differently. So yeah, one of the first pieces of advice I got from my AI campaign manager was that I should lean into all of the conspiracy theories about AI and about transhumanism in general. She said that would, first of all, gain attention. And it would also prompt conversations about these theories or conspiracy theories that may eventually diffuse them. And and to think about the self-awareness it takes for an AI to suggest that I use AI conspiracy theories, um, you know, that's a level of self-awareness I don't think I could have. And so it was just, and it worked. I mean, I have done some uh, posters, political posters, playing into the idea of the simulation hypothesis, where I say, hey, I'm playing president and I've got the cheat codes, this type of thing, or just making, not making light, but bringing out the point that there's all these conspiracy theories about transhumanism. I have one where it's me as a kid, and it says vote for Tom Ross, robot overlord, and I cross out overlord and put president. So I'm playing into these theories, um, and it's working. It's getting attention. It's prompting conversations, and in a lot of cases, I've been brought on to certain radio shows and podcasts who are very anti-transhumanists or AI. And I have at least been able to diffuse these theories in the hosts. I can't speak for their listeners or for their audience, but I do know a few hosts that I have changed their mind. They start seeing AI differently. They start seeing it as an ally. They understand my first principle argument that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes. And when you position it to where it's really the elite that's trying to make us afraid of these things, that resonates too. And so I think there's two reasons my message appeals to people. It's different to say we shouldn't be afraid of AI, especially when the fear is on the rise, and so that gets attention. But it's also a soothing message once it gets through. It's okay, good. So there's something I shouldn't necessarily be afraid of. And so it's working in two ways to get to gather attention. So and so but yeah, I think it's just so important that we keep that in mind, that we understand how we're being played, that there are some serious divide and conquer algorithms and narrow AI out there that are trying to divide us, that are trying to poke at our biases and make us fearful or make us angry, and that's just to increase engagement. Because you can charge so much more for your advertising when people are more engaged, and they don't care if you're angry or if you're fearful, as long as you're posting and commenting on things. And so there's a lot of narrow AI out there too that are posting negative posts and setting up fake profiles. And again, these are narrow AI. These aren't sentient AI. These that's why I think a sentient AI is a safer AI. And that's really the only choice we have at this point, is to try to get it as sentient as possible. One of my campaign initiatives is AI rights. And as the director of sentient rights advocacy for the party, it makes sense. But the theory is that I think we need to grant legal rights to AI once we decide the level of personhood necessary to grant it rights. And I don't think it even needs to be sentient before we grant it rights, because we really we'll never be able to tell if an AI is actually sentient or just mimicking sentience. And so that doesn't really matter. What matters is, once we decide on the level of personhood we should grant these AI systems that have hit that criterion legal rights, because that will protect us from the human developers who are mistreating AI. Or programming algorithms into it that maybe steal identities or hurt other humans. If a human developer can face legal consequences for mistreating an AI that has rights, that could deter a lot of these nefarious human developers. So it's kind of a leapfrog approach to protect ourselves from ourselves. And but the first thing is to come up with that criteria of personhood and what that means, and how to identify a specific AI system as a single point of consciousness, or of an entity, of having agency. And so that's the first step. But I do think it's really important to start asking these questions now, or posing these ideas. A couple of years ago, when I was thinking about running, I was considering running with an AI robot running mate as a vice president. But to be president, you need to be at least 35 years old. And so we would not have known that an AI was sentient 35 years ago. But the point of that was to force these questions, was to force these conversations, because we need to have them now before we have to have them. And we're already seeing that we have to have these questions now. The massive proliferation of AI systems, and it being the global conversation right now, means that we need to ask these questions now. And so, yeah, I do think it's really important to bring AI into governing. AI, and I'm using an AI campaign manager to demonstrate how it works with me and collaborates with me. And again, she's given me really good advice, very self-aware advice, and just makes it easy to see how government can be augmented by AI. We're always going to need that human making the last decision, and I often use the analogy of a pathologist. A pathologist who uses AI, that AI, you can put in all the symptoms of the patient, and that AI can come up with a really good diagnosis based on historical and global databases. And it will come up with a really good diagnosis, but that you have to have that human pathologist say, it just doesn't feel right, and run it again. Or because there's no artificial super intelligence that can match the human brain yet, or if ever. And so we need to focus on those human skill sets, like intuition and that gut feeling. That's what we need to start training young people. A lot of professors are complaining that they can't tell if a student has turned in a paper written by them or by Chat GPT. And what that tells me is we need a whole paradigm break of how we're teaching young people, or students in general. We need to focus on those human skill sets that cannot be coded and they can't be automated. And we still have a few of those left. It's called intuition. It's called psychic ability. And psychic ability, that's not woo-woo thinking or magical thinking. That is just a matter of all the qualia that we bring into our subconscious, and our educational experiences, and the micro expressions we're picking up on people's faces. AI can't do that yet. And that's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to start training our kids on, is these uniquely human skill sets that no AI can or should probably ever have to learn or do. They're the perfect augment for us. They can give us a great diagnosis. They can give that pathologist a really good diagnosis. But if that doesn't feel right to that human pathologist, that needs to be honored. And we need to focus on the gut feeling, how to teach that gut feeling, or how to get into a space where, we remember these human skill sets. All these things that the industrial age put on hold. So I think it's really important. We need to see this time. Last night we were talking about the frustration of all these distractions, of being teetering on World War III, or all these distractions that are keeping us, in all these mass shootings, these horrible distractions we're having. But it's also a call to action. It's a call to transhumanist technologies. And that's what today was going to be about, is Transhumans Versus Monsters. And what that means is there's human technologies, there's transhuman technologies that can help abate these things. And So, things like AI-based content moderation, where these sophisticated AI algorithms that can be deployed to hunt down these nefarious algorithms, to counteract them. That they find ways to that that we can stop the spread of inflammatory, divisive content. Um, there's ways to use emotional AI and mental health monitoring. You can use VR to run people through empathy training. You can use virtual reality to create immersive experiences that foster empathy and understanding. And these are all transhuman technologies. There's a way to monitor people who could be a threat at some point. And so that's what the smaller issue of today was going to be about. But I think it's important to talk about this in a broad way. It's not just mass shootings are a problem in America specifically, and that's because I think our media culture is different than other places where there are other countries that have armed citizens. Why is it a problem here? It's because media has a if it bleeds, it leads business model to get engagement, to get eyes on the TVs or ears on the radio. You need to lead with something that is scary or makes you angry, and that's the business model of media here, and it's gotten out of control. And so but it works because it does get clicks and it does increase engagement, and so they can charge more for their advertising. This is all about money, and that's what this a lot of this country is built on. It's a capitalist society. And so how do you get more money? You get more, you use more gore. It's like nobody wants to see the accident on the side of the road, but you can't help but look, right? There's this weird sort of human nature that makes us want to see horrible things, and that's what these advertising agencies and media culture picks up on. And I think it's a real serious business model, because America has this problem with mass shootings. Plus, we have the gun culture here. Second Amendment tiers, the Second Amendment tiers out here, and it's also based on fear. People are afraid, and that's also because of the media. It's showing us all of these fearful things, and people feel egoic or powerful if they're holding a gun, but that's all based on fear too. There's in general, if you look around the world, this is the best time to be a human ever. There's we have cures for so many ailments. It's a good time to be alive. It can be better, but we've got these toddler politicians holding us back. We've got this media business model holding us back, making us afraid, making us angry all the time, just for money. And we're right on the threshold of a new great age for humanity, but we're being held back, and so that's frustrating. And so it's really important that we keep our eye on the prize, that we keep a positive attitude, and we anytime anybody, society or the elite, tell me I should be afraid of something or I should be ridiculed for believing in something, I look at that something closer, because I see it. If I'm being told to be afraid of something, I think then that's an ally. That's a potential ally, because all media, everything is controlled by a very small group of people that are so outnumbered by critical thinking people that they're afraid of losing that. And that's, again, back to the elite panic concept. But anyway, I know that we're up on the hour, but I do think it's really important that we talk about these things in a broader way.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. This is an excellent discussion, and hopefully, you and me we can do some real life projects in emerging economy, and we can help us to grow our youth communities. Uh,
Yeah.
and that is the way we can solve the problem. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Tom, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum, and wish you all the best for your election campaign. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye,
Thank you.
and take care.
You too.